Hello everyone. We are discussing approach to political science and international relation. And I remind you that what is approach? Because without right approach, you cannot crack this exam. So what is approach? I remind you that accessing anything, if you access a particular subject, a particular issue, a particular subject or issue or phenomenon, then it is the subject matter. And how you inquire it, that is method. Whether this method is comparative, scientific, inductive, deductive. So approach means accessing a thing, accessing an issue, accessing a phenomenon, accessing a subject. It contains both subject, that is what to inquire, and method, that is the procedure of inquiry. Whether method is scientific, inductive, deductive, and subject is what you are inquiring. So in approach to political science and international relation, our methodology or method is Q&A, that is question and answers. So this is the approach which will be fetching you good marks, because for the reason that whatever you are studying, it is ultimately for writing an answer in exam hall. So that is what approach is, how you access a thing. So our today's topic would be this question. Earlier we have discussed the question on Plato and Aristotle. Today is the turn for Karl Marx. So always I emphasize that you must have understanding of the topic, and then only you must write. So first see the question. Differentiate between freedom and liberty. I am writing in capital letter for better visibility. So freedom and liberty, you have to differentiate. These are the key words of your question. Then second part of the question is discuss Marx means Karl Marx notion of freedom. So see the question carefully. Many of you might be using this freedom and liberty interchangeably. However, socialist, including Karl Marx, would use the word freedom more, and liberals, capitalists, they will focus more on liberty. So we have to differentiate. In one of the case, they are same, but there are many dissimilarities or differences between them. In simple and plain language, liberty means absence of constraints, absence of restrictions. And this does not mean it is absolute. Absence of restrictions means those restrictions, justified restrictions reasonable restrictions, justified restrictions would be applied to ensure liberty of all. So in one line, liberty is individual's freedom. But as far as freedom is concerned, it is universal. It's not only for individual. Freedom of individual is liberty. But if we say Indian freedom struggle, we don't say Indian liberty struggle. We say freedom of women, freedom of workers, freedom of manufacturers. So whenever the group claims come, then freedom is used, not the liberty. Liberty is specifically used for individual. But it cannot be absolute, because absolute liberty is license. And license of one would be conditional servitude of the others. So all liberties, rights, freedom, they are conditional to ensure it for all. So freedom of women, when we say, then women is not an individual, it's group. Freedom of workers means it's a group. Freedom of a nation, that is also a group. But we can't use the word liberty of a nation. So first difference that you can see, that liberty word is mostly used by liberalism, capitalism, individualism, that theory which deals with the liberalism, capitalism, individualism, because liberalism, capitalism starts with individualism, then goes to utilitarianism, then it goes to welfare state, and then it goes to communitarian. So it starts with individualism, individual liberty. But as you know, the question is regarding Karl Marx. Karl Marx, the socialist thinker of 19th century, precisely the time period is 1818 to 1883, that is in 19th century. And his most important book was 1848 Communist Manifesto, in the front page of which he wrote that workers of the world, join hands, you have nothing to lose but chains, and you have whole world to conquer. Means in 19th century, industrial capitalism was at its peak. There was huge rich-poor gap. Minority capitalists were leading a lavish life, while majority workers were at the subsistence level. Their conditions were pathetic. And in this circumstance, socialism emerged in reaction to the evils of capitalism. And Marx was against capitalism. Just we are focusing on understanding part, then we will be writing this ideal answer. So Marx objected and rejected capitalism. Marx condemned capitalism. For Marx, capitalism was irrational, unscientific, inhuman, doomed, bound to collapse, and best is yet to come. For Marx, classless, stateless society, communist society would be the final stage of human development, ultimate stage of human development, which will be coming after revolution, in which capitalism would be overthrown. The point is that Marx was revolutionary socialist. He is also called scientific socialism. When we say Karl Marx as a thinker, then we focus on his thoughts. But when we say Marxist theory or systematic knowledge, which involves both philosophy and science, or Marxism as an ideology, that group of ideas or science of ideas, then it will consist of not only Karl Marx but thoughts of Lenin, Mao, Rosa Luxemburg, other Marxists, Stalin, and neo-Marxist, and so Polonjas, and so others are there. So here Marx and other socialists condemned capitalism, and liberalism capitalism focuses on liberty, that is individual freedom. So first we need to differentiate between liberty and freedom. Liberty is used by liberal capitalists as they believe that a rational individual will pursue his self-calculated interest, and will rationally calculated self-interest would be pursued by individuals. So in liberalism capitalism, there is atomistic view of society. Atomistic view of society means they view society as sum total of rational individuals. But Marxian notion or socialist notion is to see society not in terms of sum total of rational, abstract, isolated, self-centric individuals. But Marx and other socialists see individual as part of a group, working class, capitalist class. So socialists focus more on group identity, group rights, group claims, that is freedom. While liberalism capitalism focuses on individual freedom. As Locke says, every individual is rational. He knows the good, bad, rational, irrational, desirable, undesirable. He is the best judge of himself. So liberals, capitalists use liberty while socialists use freedom. Number one. Liberty is used for individual, while freedom is used for individual, for community, for the nation, and it is universal. Freedom is undisputed. Whether it's liberals, whether it's socialist, Marxist, except fascism, all will favor freedom. So freedom is a universally accepted value. But liberty is more specifically identified with the historical ideology of liberalism, capitalism, individualism, utilitarianism. There are other differences between freedom and liberty. That in liberties we talk about civil liberties, we talk about political liberties. When we declassify liberty, then civil liberties means those liberties which a person is entitled for being a private individual. When we call political liberty or political freedom, again as an individual citizen. So both are in individual capacity, whether civil liberties as a private individual or political liberties as an individual citizen. But when we extend this in socio-economic sphere for group claims, for class claims, then we cannot say socio-economic liberty. We have to use the word socio-economic freedom. Freedom of workers, freedom of women, freedom of peasants, freedom of manufacturers. Because in socio-economic sphere is the material sphere of exchange. Freedom of whom? Freedom of capitalists or workers? Freedom of employers or freedom of employees? Freedom of sellers or freedom of buyers? So here conflict would be more in socio-economic sphere. The claims of freedom would be more conflicting. So here challenges would be more. So for liberals, the primary value is individual freedom or liberty. But for Marxist socialist, the primary value or preference they give is to socio-economic freedom, that is equality. In one line, liberalism capitalism focuses on individual freedom, while or individual liberty, or for them liberty is the primary value, for socialist equality is the primary value. Because socialists favor egalitarian society. They favor class rights, community rights. So these are the differences between freedom and liberty. But this is first part of the question which you have to deal in 4 or 5 lines. Major part of the question is this one. Discuss again. I have already said that see the tag word of the question, what is the demand of the question, what is the central idea of the question. So discuss, you have to go in depth, in detail. The Marx notion of freedom. Here it's clearly written Marx notion of freedom, not Marx notion of liberty. Because we have discussed the difference between liberty and freedom. See, liberty, freedom, rights, they are being interchangeably used. Civil liberties, civil rights, civil freedom. It's true that they are interchangeably used. In Indian Constitution, the freedom in Article 19 to 22 is mentioned within fundamental rights. So rights are mostly those justified claims which are socially acceptable and legally enforceable. So freedom is considered to be subset of rights, the much broader concept. So here the question is not regarding rights, but liberty or freedom are in terms of claims or entitlements. One should have liberty, one is having liberty, means one is having claim or entitlement. So this portion we have discussed, but major part is this one, Marx notion for freedom. So Marx believed that capitalism, liberalism was inhuman, unscientific, irrational, unsustainable, doomed. So he says it was inhuman. So if we say, what is Marx freedom? So capitalist alienation, ending capitalist in one line, Marx notion of freedom, I am just simplifying, Marx notion of freedom is equal to, because if you study humanities in a scientific manner and you simplify, then you can make it in terms of formulas to simplify the things which is written in literature. So Marx's notion of freedom is equal to absence of capitalist alienation, absence of capitalist alienation. This is the key word. Alienation means detachment. Because Marx believed that there was no freedom in capitalism. Capitalism claimed that it was having free competition. Marx claimed that in capitalism there was no free competition at all, because somebody is starting from the house or of industrialist. If parents of someone is industrialist and parents of one is laborer, it's not level playing field. So there is no question of free competition. So all capitalists claim that they are having free competition, market economy, capitalism, individualism, liberalism, they are having free competition. This claim even is wrong according to Karl Marx. In Marxian scheme of things, as far as capitalism survives, there cannot be freedom. There cannot be genuine liberty. Genuine liberty, when we say, there cannot be genuine free competition. Because in capitalism, if there is private means, ownership of means of production, there will be inequality. Somebody would be starting from advantage, many others would be starting from disadvantage. So there is no free competition in capitalism. Then capitalism is having so inhuman detachment. Detachment from the product one is manufacturing. First layer or level of alienation. Algav means detachment. Second, the place of working. First is product. 4 levels of alienation is there. First is product, one is manufacturing. Second is place. Third is fellow being. And fourth is oneself. There are 4 levels of alienation in capitalism. Capitalism is so irrational, so unscientific, so inhuman that destroys freedom. And in capitalism, there are claims against society, cutthroat competition. In capitalism, one is getting at the expense of the other. Workers will gain at the expense of capitalist and vice versa. So in capitalism, there cannot be freedom. As far as capitalism survives, according to Karl Marx, there cannot be freedom at all. The reason is these 4 levels of alienation. And let me tell you, this alienation is not only of workers, but of capitalists as well. See how. And how this alienation, capitalism, destroys the freedom. Because in capitalism, the talk of liberty is in terms of claim of individual against society. While in communism, that is classless, stateless, exploitation free society, that was the philosophy of Karl Marx communist stage, would be where there will be free cooperation and there is no need for even free competition. First thing is, in capitalism there is no free competition. Second, Marx favored that we need free cooperation, not free competition. Third, Marx says in communism, classless, stateless, exploitation free society, the individuals' basic needs would be supplemented by the society. As in communist stage, everybody would contribute according to his ability and would get according to his needs. So there is no question of one is getting at the expense of other, or individual working against society or getting at the expense of society. No, society is helping, complementing individual in communist stage, not in capitalism. So according to Marx, what is freedom? End of capitalist alienation. And how capitalist alienation will end? With the end of capitalism. And capitalism would be replaced by Marxism. Means capitalism would be replaced by communism, classless, stateless society. So capitalism is having these 4 levels of alienation. See, these 4 levels of alienation, I explain one by one, and then you will be easily understanding it. Alienation. First, alienation is from product that you are manufacturing. First, one would be detached from the product one is manufacturing. You are forced to manufacture a product which is not of your choice. And this is not applicable only for workers, but for capitalists also. If market is demanding perfume and you want to manufacture marker, pen, if you listen to your heart, if you go by your choice, if you go for manufacturing of a product of your choice, you will be out from market, capitalist as well. And what to talk of workers? In factory system, there is no feeling of creative being. You are forced to manufacture a product which which is not of your choice. Second, the products are being assembled. What you are manufacturing, you are not knowing. How will you have any attachment with it? Neither is of your choice, nor you have any feeling of creative being. In ancient and medieval period, individual was creating a whole thing like ghada, jhadu, or any product. So he had the feeling of being creative. Here there is no creative being, there is mechanical assembly of the things. So what you are manufacturing, where it will fit, you don't know. Just manufacturing just like machine. Neither of our choice, nor having any creative feeling, so you will be alienated from the product. First level of alienation. This is true for capitalist as well. Capitalist also cannot manufacture product of their choice. They are slave of market. So how there can be freedom? If you're slave of market, then where is the freedom? Second is place. Second level of alienation is from the place. You cannot choose a place of your choice for your working. It may be possible that you may hate a place where you are forced to work. So will you have any attachment or detachment with the place? You want to work in pollution-free greenfield project, but market is demanding, or capitalists want to work in a place where there is demand. So place where you are working is not of your choice. Moreover, in industrial system and factory system, the workers are placed in their various shifts. So they may not be liking a shift which they will be placed because of utility, because of demand of market, and they may be transferred to another place which is not of his choice but is the choice of capitalist and market. Same is the case with capitalist. If one is capitalist and is willing to open a factory or industry at a place of his liking, where there is less crowd, where there is less pollution, where there is environment friendly atmosphere, but there is no market, you cannot listen to your choice, you cannot listen to your heart. Capitalist will be forced to place his factory at a market demand, where there is market demand. So you are, both workers and capitalists are alienated from the place of working also, because it is neither of their choice and nor of their interest. They are just slave of market. If they don't follow the principles of market, of demand and supply, utility, they will be irrelevant, they will be out from the market. Third level of alienation, from fellow being. There is no fraternity, there is no brotherhood, because one is getting at the expense of the other. If there are 2 posts of promotion and there are 9 people are there, they will pull the leg of each other. Cutthroat competition. In that case, will they have attachment with each other? No. One is getting in capitalism, one is getting at the expense of the other. So there will be no attachment. In fact, there will be alienation. In fact, there will be competition, not healthy competition, conflict in fact. Unhealthy conflict. One is getting at the expense of the other. One is knowing that by leg pulling only I can get, at the expense of others I can get. Will there be attachment among workers? This is true with capitalist also. One capitalist profit will be more if others' capitalist profit is less. There is cutthroat competition in capitalism. Coca-Cola will get more by playing down Pepsi-Cola. So in that case, Patanjali will get more when it will downplay Colgate. So among capitalists also, there is no attachment. They hate each other, they are detached from each other, they have unhealthy conflict. So capitalists claim that it was having healthy competition and free competition is a wrong claim according to Karl Marx. Finally, one will be annihilated from oneself. One will be just cog in machine. One's work would be routinized, machinized, robotic, stereotyped, prototyped. One's individual would be lost. His all inclination for literature, for music, for amusement, for visiting various places would be killed, would be ended. Because in capitalism there is so much competition, so there is so much cutthroat competition that one has to become slave of wealth and money. One has to run behind money. So his original personality would be lost. And this is true for both workers and capitalists. If your original personality would be lost, you will not be what you were. You will not be able to do or pursue a thing as per your choice. You cannot listen to your heart. You cannot go as per your choice and thinking. You are just slave of market. You will have no attachment with yourself. You will detach from yourself. You will lose yourself. And this is also with capitalists. If capitalists do the things not as per market, as per utility, as per demand, and just they pursue the things as per their choice, as per their interest, as per their inclination, as per their hobbies, and as per their certain taste, they will be out from market. They cannot afford to do so. So capitalism is so bad. Capitalism is so inhuman. Capitalism causes so much alienation, both for workers and capitalists, that as far as alienation continues, freedom is not possible. So alienation is inversely proportional to freedom. You can write in another language. A is inversely proportional to F. As far as capitalism survives, capitalist alienation will continue. And as far as capitalist alienation continues, freedom would be lost. So if you want to have freedom, you will have to end capitalism through revolution, through violence. And in transitional stage, there will be socialist state, there will be dictatorship of workers. In that, minority capitalist would be exploited till the class difference ends, till private property ends, till private means of production, ownership of means of production ends, till classless, stateless society is formed, till communist society is formed. That will be highest stage of human development. That will be exploitation free, and there will be no alienation. There will be free. There will be complete freedom of all. There will be no cutthroat competition. So this is what Marx's concept of freedom. Marx says that man is social. And this is the reason why man is social. For Marx, man is social and creative. Social and creative. This Marx says, to prove this point, Karl Marx, to prove this point, Marx says, man is not willing to live in an isolated manner, solitary manner, abstract, self-centric individual, no. The proof that man is social is that people come together for better production. Economic production is the most important human activity. Religious activity, cultural activity, political activity, other activities you can survive without them for so long. But without economic production, material economic production, one cannot survive. If one has to create history, one has to eat. One has to go for production. Economic, and for better production is possible not alone. So this explains togetherness or society. An individual alone cannot have better production. So many individuals come together to have better production. And more production will satisfy unsatisfied material needs. Economic structure is the base. Economic production is the most important human activity. So man is by nature social. Man is social by nature. He don't want to live in isolated life. as the capitalists claim that individuals will pursue their rationally calculated self-interest. They view society in atomistic terms. Even Hegel, Marxian thought is inspired from German philosophy of Hegel and Feuerbach, then British political economy, and then French Revolution. So Hegel, in 18th century German philosopher or thinker, believed that man can have double role. As a private individual, as a part of civil society, he can work for his particular interest, and as a citizen, as a part of political society, he can work for general interest. Marx rejected that. Marx says that man cannot play double role, that as a private individual, part of civil society, and as a citizen, part of political society. He cannot rise above his selfish interest to work for general interest if there is division, if there is capitalism, if there is no communism, if there is no classless, stateless society. This is not possible. So the only way to ensure freedom, genuine free competition, free cooperation, what is required? Communism. Classless, stateless, exploitation-free, communist society, highest stage of human development. So in that stage, production would also be social, distribution would also be social. In capitalism, production is social. Capitalism was better than feudalism and primitive society and that of master-slave society. But the communism would be the best. Because in capitalism, production was social, but distribution was unequal, uneven. Marx says in communism, production would also be social because man is social by nature. It was capitalism which caused alienation, which caused cutthroat competition, which made man unsocial, which created a condition in which man became unsocial or antisocial. So that cutthroat competition. So for Marx, liberty is in terms of selfish claim against society. But freedom is a condition. Freedom is a situation where man, individual and society is having complementary relation. Society helps, reinforce in fulfilling his basic needs. In fact, social production is better production to satisfy unsatisfied material needs. And creative, man is creative. What is the proof? Every succeeding stage of human history is materially more developed than a preceding stage. Initially, primitive society. Materially more developed was master-slave society. Materially more developed was feudal society. Materially more developed was capitalist society, but the best would be communist. Communist would be the ultimate stage, highest stage, final stage. Had the man not been creative, there would not have consistent improvisation in mode of production. So man is not only social, but man is creative. This social nature and creative nature was responsible for having better production, more production, because population was rising to satisfy unsatisfied material needs. So these things you have to write in this particular question. Now you have understood the contents part. Now it's easier to write answer. I always emphasize that in a good answer, first is understanding. First, you have understanding based on knowledge. It's not knowledge alone. Knowledge is not self-sufficient. Beyond knowledge is understanding, thinking, and writing in your own way. Writing as per the demand of the question. As I repeat, it's not a write essay on Karl Marx. It's not essay. I will remind this vital thing again and again. Because you know many things about Karl Marx. The demand of the question is not all the things. It's a part of it. So you have to focus here. Means you have locus, you have boundaries. You have to adhere the boundaries. You have not to cross that. So here the question is specifically relating to alienation. So I'll write, see the contents again. I have discussed man is social and creative. These are the representative lines. Then alienation, that how capitalism caused alienation, and end of capitalist alienation. By ending capitalism itself will ensure freedom. I have given the formula, 4 levels of alienation, not only for workers but for capitalists as well. Then we have also discussed this, what is Marx's notion of freedom? That is the precise question which has been asked. So Marx's notion of freedom is this one. You have, this is the central idea, and you have to, and second part of the question you have to rely on that. Then first part of the question you have to see that differentiate between freedom and liberty. So this is representative, that liberty is used by liberal capitalists while freedom is used universally by socialists, by liberals, by all. Liberty of individual as a citizen or as a private individual, while freedom is of community and nation as well. Freedom as a value is hardly questioned, but liberty is more closely associated with the liberalism capitalism. So liberty is of individual, freedom is of all. So you have to differentiate between them. And Marxian language you have to write, because this particular question is in context of Karl Marx. So liberty is in terms of claim or selfish claim against society, as you have to get from society, at their expense you have to get. But for Marx, freedom is not a claim, freedom is a condition, freedom is a situation, and that situation is there in communist stage. So in this way you have to differentiate, and then you have to write second part of the question. So you have, Marx has discussed so many things. Marx discussed dialectic materialism, historical dialectic materialism. Marx discussed class war. Marx discussed critique of capitalism, theory of surplus value, socialist revolution and dictatorship of workers, then finally classless, stateless, communist society. Marx discussed various things. In all these things, you have not to write everything, that you start writing dialectic materialism. It's not the demand of the question. Among these 7 points, that first is dialectic materialism, then second is historical dialectic materialism, third is class war, fourth is surplus value, fifth is critique of capitalism. This question is relating with this, critique of capitalism mainly. Then sixth is socialist revolution and dictatorship of workers, and seventh is classless, stateless, communist society. So you have to link, because freedom is possible in communist society, so you have to write that part, communist stage, as well as you have to write the capitalist criticism, because alienation is caused by capitalism. That part only you have to write. So you must be knowing in the whole ocean of things, ocean of thoughts, which part first you have to pick. The question is demanding which part, which I have studied comprehensively, but question is demanding from which part. Once you pick, then half work done. Then your locus is there. You don't cross the limit, you don't write, because I repeatedly say that you will be penalized for the things which you have written, the things which have not been asked, because that will demonstrate your shallow understanding of the topic. We precisely chose to have this approach in political science and international relations, because what we have seen that so many students are studying so much. They have knowledge as well. They have many having good concepts and good concepts and good knowledge as well. But at the end of the day, when they start writing, they try to demonstrate their knowledge. They try to write more and more things, just like university exams. They think that writing more will fetch more marks. Here, this approach will not work. I have repeatedly said, you have to write precisely. Clinical precision is required. And in clinical precision, first is understanding of the question, second is knowledge part, third is concept part, fourth is tag word of the question, fifth is locus, next is focus, time limit, word limit, flow. It's not that you write first this and then this. This order will be changed. That will be unsystematic, haphazard answer. But at the same time, when you write this context, you have not to forget. Because ultimately it has been asked in terms of marks. And I always advise that whenever you write any answer about any thinker, about any theory, about any ideology, then you have to discuss the time period. Because time, space, location not only helps you, it also helps examiner that you are understanding the context better. Without understanding the context, without understanding the prevailing situation, you cannot understand the mindset of the thinker or the particular dominant theory or dominant ideology at that point of time. So in first line, you have to write this, that Marxism, socialism in 19th century focused on equality and emerged against the evils of capitalism in terms of huge rich poor gap. If you start with this line, then here time is there, here space is there, context is there, and then you start writing that, then you know all the contents. Because liberalism, capitalism was before Marxism, socialism. In fact, socialism, Marxism emerged in reaction to evils of capitalism. Otherwise, capitalism, right from starting phase, 14th century, initially it was trading capitalism. Then after 1750 onwards, it was industrial capitalism. Then subsequently financial capitalism, trading capitalism, industrial capitalism, financial capitalism, all those were there. And when industrial revolution or industrial capitalism was at its peak in 19th century, this is how the context is understood. Once you understand the context, it will be easy to write. So in first line you have to start with that. Then 4 to 5 lines you have to differentiate between them, which I have discussed. Then change the paragraph. Why to change paragraph? One may say this technical aspect, these things matter a lot. If question is having 2 components, your answer must also reflect the 2 components, segregated, separated, in a manner that question, the examiner will be also having ease of checking your copy, that okay, this is the first part of the question that student has dealt with, and then the second part. But don't forget, I have said discuss. Discuss means you have to go in detail, in depth. And had the question been explained, had the question been writing comment, critically evaluate, illustrate, they would have different demands. And never forget to highlight the keyword. Here keyword is freedom, liberty, and discuss Marxian notion of freedom. So freedom is mainly because of capitalist alienation, and also freedom is denied because of exploitation, because of irrationality, because of unscientific. This is the reason why in one line you have to write, according to Karl Marx, liberalism, capitalism was irrational, inhuman, unscientific, doomed, exploitative. Because the very exploitative nature of capitalism was also responsible for lack of freedom. So I hope you will be writing precisely with clinical accuracy, hardly giving any scope to examiner to deduct marks. And by this we wind it up, and in next class we will be discussing again. Our approach would remain the same in this particular, in these sessions. that question and answer, Q&A is our method, and what to inquire is the subject which is from syllabus, which has been asked by UPSC. So we'll be continuing with that, and that's it for today. Thank you.